ultimately, you know, I really pride our organization on, like, if someone's put on an exhibition in their bedroom and invited a couple of friends, we probably know about it.
Hmm.
And that's one of the things that I'm most proud of, is that we are every year inviting these spaces that maybe have done like one show to come and join us, because we really liked it and we really liked what they were doing. So I think, that's definitely a big part of it. In terms of humor, I think that the art world takes itself incredibly seriously, uh,
Big time.
and I don't really have a whole lot of time for that. But I've also found that I am most moved when I don't know whether I should be laughing or crying, and that to me is when I hit like an emotional point where art really means something to me. And I think that really goes hand in hand with the notion of urgency, because as far as I'm concerned, I think art needs to be doing something. It needs to be having an emotional effect on people. And, I think that we can very easily forget that art is a really efficacious medium for communicating.
Yeah.
It's not just about like pretty pictures, or sometimes it can be, because those are very pleasant if that's the thing you want to communicate. Um, but, I feel, or I think one of the things that I try to get across in everything that we do is that if we're doing something, we have to mean it and we have to be saying something. Um, and, hopefully whatever we're saying is urgent and of the moment.
No, I fully agree, and I like the fact that you take risks on new things, new talent. You know, seeing someone do it from their bedroom, he's like, come on in. I think that's something similar that I started in, getting into the arts, but mainly finding all my friends on Instagram who was
Yeah.
just painting. I was like, I've got a space, everybody come through and exhibit some work. So yeah,
And
that
that's when
that
it's
makes sense.
fun.
Yeah,
I don't need to be in a room with a bunch of people I've already met.
exactly. And
Like,
it's not bound by he studied here, they exhibit here. It's just like, are you good? What's your vibe? And bring it on.
but I absolutely think that you know, the most interesting people that I know can't be put in those boxes and would hate to be put in those
Yeah,
boxes, um, because they're doing things that are off the wall and interesting, and I think aren't necessarily referential in those ways.
hmm,
Those are the people I want to be with. So
likewise, man. Um, what do traditional galleries get wrong?
I think that traditional galleries often forget a key audience that they need to be speaking to, which are young people, which are people that are showing up to the openings for the love of the game, who are really invested in the discourse around art. And I think that when you're in it and you're looking at the books and you're kind of aware of how the quote unquote sausage is made, it's really easy to kind of limit your vision towards maybe a group of people who can financialize that effort, right? So maybe they're buying the work, or they're buying the books that you make, or so on and so forth. Um, but I really wish that more traditional galleries kept a space and actively cultivated an audience that wasn't doing that, but really cared and really showed up. Because I think that one of the things that I try to remember is that if there's someone who shows up to my openings again and again and again, they need to be given the same respect as someone who's coming in and maybe buying the work, right? Because they're showing real commitment to the program. And at the end of the day, that's why we do this. Like, as I said before, with regard to communicating, if the message that we're sending out is being received, that's an opportunity to commune with someone, and really kind of, share your interests. The money will come and go.
Yeah. What are you doing intentionally this year that's different to what you did before?
Slowing down and being more intentional. I think that um, both, I think particularly with minor attractions, we've been incredibly blessed to have opportunities become available that, when you're just starting out, aren't immediately. And definitely one of the things that we focus on is only biting off opportunities that we really feel we can execute to the best of our ability. And that's a tough lesson to learn. I think I've definitely in the past wanted to do everything all at once, but one of the things that I think we are constantly talking about is whether or not we feel a given opportunity at the given moment is right for everything else going on, right? Because if it doesn't matter if you can do it, it's whether or not you can do it well, that really matters. So I think that's really what we're doing differently than maybe I personally have done in the past. But yeah, I think just also thinking about refinement is very much a part of that, and that's just where we're at.
A statement that I agree with: art is for everyone, because a lot of the time it's very boxed off in certain spaces. Why do you feel, or if you feel, that the art world is still in that exclusive box and doesn't feel like it's for everyone when you step in?
I think in some regards, it's not exclusively the industry's fault. Galleries are often open to the public, and I know that people want people to come in. Um, I think it's really that as I said before, galleries really need to focus on cultivating an audience with the general public and getting people excited to come in. Because if so many people, if they aren't invited or aren't made aware or aren't just, I think amazed by what's happening, it's not something that they'll take time out of their day to do. And as a result, it's not a world that people will discover. And so, I think that it largely feels exclusive because there hasn't been enough work done to mitigate that feeling, even if the work has been done to mitigate some of those actual impediments.
What's the frustration about how the art industry operates?
Oh, where to begin?
Loads.
No, I think my frustration about how the art industry operates is, again, it takes itself very seriously, but I want to live in a world where the art industry prioritizes talent. It prioritizes uh, urgency and kind of drive. And I think that choosing the thing we know is always easier than choosing the thing we don't. And I would love to see people take more risks.
Do you think the systems are broken in the art world, or they're outdated?
Oh, I just think they're outdated. And I also think that thinking about whether or not a system is broken or not maybe isn't the most useful lens to think of it through, because I think that the notion of it being broken maybe suggests that there's almost nothing to salvage and we have to start again. Whereas I think of everything as much more fluid. There are some things that we like and there are some things that we can leave behind. And if we focused on that mode of thinking, ultimately the mode of thinking of it being outdated, we can keep our best bits and develop new things too.
I'm going to talk more on the business side of
Yeah.
it all. Running galleries and fairs from the outside, which everybody tells me, oh, it looks fun, it's amazing, you get to do
I wouldn't know
this,
about
you meet that.
It's,
Yeah, you meet this artist and that artist. What's the hardest part for you that people don't see?
Oh, I think there's just so many moving parts. There's so many plates to balance all at once. And, I think that one of the things that people maybe don't necessarily know or imagine is that, last year we had 15,000 people come through the door. We know about all 15,000 people. And, what I would say is that more often than not, we can kind of like get a sense of where they're going and what they're doing. And it only takes one of them to do something silly to set off everything else. And so
Big chain reaction.
exactly. And so that's happening on a micro scale every day. That's probably the hardest part.
What separates people who last in this industry versus who just drops out once they realize this might be a little bit boring?
It's my mother taught me not to swear on camera, but it's people who can get kicked in the teeth and come back. And I think that, resilience, we talk about resilience as if it's like this thing that, you practice like a skill, which I guess it is, but you need to be able to take it, because I think that, as with anything, the industry works in a certain way and it doesn't typically love change. And when you are trying to instigate some of that change, you will get a lot more no's than yeses. And you will get a lot of people that aren't super excited by that. And so, if you can't look that or those people or whatever in the eye and move on, it's going to be a tough career.
Yeah. I mean, I've dealt with 1,000 no's. I'm still going through my no folder right now. Do you know what I mean? So I think definitely resilience is in there, but also, having a good team, and you've got an amazing team.
Oh my goodness.
How important is that for you?
I would say that my team is everything. We couldn't do anything without the team that we have, and to call them my team feels almost like a bit of a misnomer, that we are a collective team, of which I get to be a part of. I think that I am blessed every day to work with the most talented people I've ever met. And, I think we talked a little bit, earlier about maybe advice that you'd give someone. And the biggest piece of advice that I'd ever give anyone is if you walk into the room and feel like the smartest person, you need to get out of that room.